You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. Under the Puppet is made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who support the show over at patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media. Welcome to Under the Puppet, the show that talks to professional puppeteers about the art and business of puppetry with the sole purpose of helping you up your puppet game. My name is Grandpa Choco, and this is Under the Puppet. The following episode of Under the Puppet was recorded live at the Theater Off Jackson in Seattle, Washington, as part of the Felticon Puppetry Convention on Saturday, August 11th, 2018. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Under the Puppet Live here at Felticon. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is the first time I've ever done Under the Puppet Live. My name is Grandpa Choco. I'm a puppeteer, and I'm a huge puppet fan, and very excited to be here at Felticon. And I produce a monthly podcast called Under the Puppet, and it talks to professional puppeteers about the art and business of puppetry. And my whole goal is so that aspiring puppeteers or people who are puppeteers now will listen to it, and it will inspire them, give them ideas on how to do things. And we've had a lot of great guests. And I'm very, very excited to do it live. This is I've wanted to do it live for a very long time, and I'm glad that this was the first opportunity. So, with that out of the way, let me talk about our guest today on Under the Puppet. For over 20 years, Annett Mateo has made all kinds of puppets out of all kinds of materials. In her career as a professional puppet designer and builder, she has built marionettes, Muppet-style puppets, rod puppets, large body costume-style, modified bunraku, shadow, and pretty much every other kind of puppet. She has built custom puppets for people, theaters, and companies that have been in shows, parades, and television. She has attended the O'Neill Theater Conference for Puppetry a number of years, and she is in her 16th season as the puppet designer and builder for Seattle Children's Theater. She has performed as a member of the puppet improv group Cotton Gin, and she builds a lot and performs occasionally. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Annett Mateo.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, we're going to talk about all this stuff that I mentioned in your bio, and maybe even a little bit more. But I wanted to start, as I usually do. Do you remember your first exposure to puppetry?
Yeah, I do. Well, it would have been early on, but one of the things that particularly sticks in my mind, and this is so geeky, when I was in 6th grade, I worked in the library, and so I got exposure to all those books, and I found a book called Making Puppets Come Alive, and which is in reprints. It's really an awesome little book. And because I worked in the library, I was able to check out that book for the entire year. And I combed over that thing, and because it shows about how to make puppets, it shows how to make puppet theaters, and it has a little play in the back, which I thought was really dumb. It was like these two puppets just beating each other up. It was like, what? It was Punch and Judy.
Right.
Which I thought, which is great, because that's classic, but for a little kid? Anyway, so yes, and I have been fascinated with it ever since.
And did you start building with things out of that book? Did you start kind of crafting
a little
things?
A little bit, yeah. I didn't really get involved with it. Our family moved around a lot, and we were, we just had a lot of things going on with our family for a while, up until high school. High school was when I got involved in theater again, and got sort of a little bit reintroduced to puppetry. But I didn't really start diving in whole hog till I moved to Seattle in the early 90s.
When you were involved in theater, were you involved in the performing aspect or the behind-the-scenes aspect?
All the behind-the-scenes things. The behind-the-scenes stuff I find so fascinating. It's so exciting.
And you, even today, you build props and stuff, too, in addition to puppets, right?
On occasion, I do. My puppet building career keeps me mostly busy, but yes, I do props because they're very similar.
Yeah. Well, what made you start to really, dive back into puppetry when you got to Seattle?
Finding a puppetry community that was the biggest thing. I started originally working with the Fremont Arts Council, which is the people who run the Solstice Parade that happens in the middle of June every year, and there were a number of puppeteers involved in that at the time. There used to be, there is still a puppetry element in it, but it used to be much more puppet-centric then. There used to be pageants that used to happen out in, they happened where Adobe is now, but where in Gasworks Park is where they moved to later, and there were all these huge, giant puppet pageants that were amazing. So meeting those people were how I really realized that there is, normal people can do puppetry.
And what was do you remember your first, like, okay, I'm going to build a puppet, I'm going to try and make it the best puppet I can, not just like kind of fooling around and making a puppet, but like you really put your time and effort into making a great puppet?
Yeah, I met Roger Mara, who had moved up from California. He was an amazing, amazing puppeteer in California, very successful, a wonderful, wonderful performer. And we met, and he was actually ended up being my marionette mentor. And he said, if you're going to do this, you need to, build a show. You need to make a show and, take it out to the libraries and schools. There was a system. I actually have been out of it for a long time, so there may still be a system to do this. But they put out a theme at the time. They would put out a theme every year, and then we would submit our shows for the theme, and then the librarians would bid on your show, and be like, we want you in Burien, or we want you in wherever it is, and to come to the libraries and do the shows, which was great. So I built a show for doing that. So my first show was Carnival of the Animals, and I built a variety of puppets for that, both marionettes and some little rod puppets.
Yeah, I think that, I can't speak for Seattle, but I know in Southern California it's definitely kind of still the same system where they give out a theme and people submit all kinds of shows, not just puppetry shows,
right,
but to
exactly.
the library.
Yeah. Entertainers of all kinds.
Yeah. Do you remember your first paid puppet gig where you got paid for building a puppet?
I do, actually. I mean, technically, I guess it would have been that show. But yes, I had started out in high tech. I come from a very creative family. So being creative in my family was like, yeah, great, so you're creative. It's like, go get a day job, So I did, I was the good kid. I went and got the day job, but the creative thing never went away. So I had been going back and forth, and so I had the great good fortune of making a lot of money in high tech and being able to put it aside. So when Doug Posh, Douglas N. Posh, who was working at the Children's Theater at the time, when I met him, and I met all of these, him and Andy Kim and Roger Mara, I met them all through the Fremont Arts Council. Even though Roger wasn't directly related to that, he had his own thing going on. Still, he would come out to these things, and that's how we met. Anyway, Doug had a job. There was a show called Two Donuts, which was an unfortunate show in Arizona, and Big Friendly Giant for the Children's Theater here. He had both of those builds going on at the same time. So he brought in a couple of us that he knew, and we built it in his garage back when we could do that. And and I had been looking to get out of high tech for a while. And so so he guaranteed me 6 weeks worth of work. And I was like, yes, that's all I need. So after about 3 weeks, he's like, don't you have to go back to work? And it's like, I quit my job. And he's like, what? You did what? It's like, no, sorry, I've been looking to do this. But yes, so that, yeah, I have a copy of that check up on my wall.
Oh, your first check?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, and this is funny because the next question I wanted to ask is, because you mentioned in your bio about walking away from your high-tech career, and I think that is something that a lot of performers, you have to have a day job. You have to have something that pays the bills because you got to eat and you got to have a roof over your head. Well, while you were still working on that job, you said you were still creative. What did you do to stay creative while you were still working?
It was working with the Arts Council, with the Arts Council group. It was really great. They would do the summer solstice parade, and then there was a big winter solstice feast, which is a big installation type of a thing because it's inside. And there was meetings, so we stayed together. It's like there was a bunch of us that were the same age at about the same time that had all sort of either moved to Seattle or just came into the creative scene in Seattle, and it was great. There was like 30 of us that were still all a great group of friends. And so that being involved with them was the thing that kept my creative thing going. And, after I met Doug and Andy Kim, too, he really tried to, he was from the Heart of the Beast in Minnesota, and he had tried to make a Heart of the Beast type group here, tried to help the Arts Council sort of transition into something like that, and it kind of never stuck. It just didn't happen. But being involved with those people, being involved with creative people were the things that kept me.
Yeah. And then the decision to quit your job, how hard was that, or scary was that, to quit your job?
It was a little scary, definitely, because it was, when I struggled all through college, with, it's like, do I get this new pair of jeans because, my other ones are, literally falling off of me, or do I, eat tonight, I mean, it's like, right. I hated those kind of decisions, or can I buy art supplies, or do I eat? And it's just, and I knew that if I was going to quit, that was going to be a significant question again. It's like, I'm going to be scrabbling for money. And I was like, how frustrating. But on the other token too is like I'd also been fighting the creative thing for so long that I was and I had saved up somewhere in the neighborhood of most of a year's worth of salary. I am able to live really low to the ground. You know, it's like I don't have car payments. It's like my rent was really cheap back then. And it's like, so I didn't have a lot of other things that I spent money on. So it's like that, keeping my expenses very low really helped a lot.
Well, it wasn't just like, I quit, see you later, without any thought. You actually planned.
Yeah, no, actually I tried once to quit, and I opened up a flower shop, and then that didn't work. Then I went back to high tech, and then I quit again, and it's like that worked. I stuck the second time.
Right. Looking back at it now, was that the right decision to leave that job?
Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, every now and then, I mean, it was rough going for those first few years. And, yes, I did do side jobs on occasion, too. But every now and then I look back at it, and I'm still not making, I think in my best year that I've had yet, I'm making about 2/3 the salary that I made when I was making high tech. And it's just, but you know what? It's just, I wouldn't go back for anything. You know, I can't imagine having a 9-to-5 job 50 weeks a year again. You know, I there are times when I am working all the time. I'm working all the days. I don't have any days off. You know, I don't have weekends off and things like that. But still, then there are times when I can set my own hours, and it's great.
And you mentioned that your family was creative. How were they supportive of your decision to quit? Were they okay with it?
At first, you know, my mom every now and then is like, so, you know, I'd be like, oh man, I'm having trouble with my. She's like, so have you checked the WAN ads? It's just like, but you know what? She is my number one fan. You know, she thinks. Yeah. You know, she thinks like I'm the next Jim Henson, I swear. You know, it's like she's so great. She's over the years as she's seen what I have done. She is just a huge fan of mine. It's great. So yes, extremely supportive now.
Yeah. Well, let me back up a little bit because I skipped over this question. But did you have training in like art or things like that? Did you go to school, college?
When I was having a tough time in college because everything's interesting. College is a smorgasbord. Oh my God, you can take all these classes. It's amazing. So I took all these classes. It was amazing, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So I was chatting with my dad, and he said, you know, sounds like what you need is a trade. So I went and got the high-tech thing, which was great. It was great advice because it's like that was terrific. So once I had the job, it's like then I can go get my degree in whatever I wanted. So then I did get an art degree, but it was an art studio degree, basically. So it wasn't back then I finished my degree mostly to finish my degree, not so much to get it in any particular thing. So I thought, well, if it doesn't matter, I'm going to get what I want. So I got an art. And the school that I went to didn't have any kind of program like that. In hindsight, I really, really wish I would have gone to theater. Really wish I would have taken a theater program, would have gotten a theater degree, or have gone back even for a master's in theater. I have, over the years, now basically have learned everything that I would have learned in a master's program, but I just would have been lovely to have had that jump start, to have had that information earlier in my career rather than later. So no, I have no formal puppetry training other than working with mentors.
Yeah. And would you recommend that to young puppet builders who want to get into it, is to find a mentor and see if you can work with them?
Absolutely. A matter of fact, I kind of don't know how else you could do it. It's just, puppetry is such a huge, complex, multidimensional art that you have to talk to other people in the community to figure out how things are going on. It's like, yeah, I don't know how you can do it without finding somebody and being like, how'd you do that? You know, can I follow you? It's like, let me figure that out. Let me watch you do that. So. And
how was it working with your mentor?
Oh, amazing. Oh, spectacular. Oh, yeah. I learned so much from both of them. It was absolutely spectacular. Both of them have passed away, and that was absolutely devastating. And both of them passed away way too early. I was not done with them at all. So.
But do you still see them in your work today? Like, do you still see things they've taught you?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, you have an amazing website that has lots of pictures of all the different puppets you build, and I love that one section of your website is puppets big and small, and you really have built tiny puppets to big, giant parade puppets. I wanted to ask this: do you have a preference on which to build, big or small?
Definitely the small. Giant puppets are a lot of work.
Yeah.
They are so much work, you know. I mean, it's all the things that you have to deal with a puppet, small puppet, you know, just expanded. You know, you need this, you know, instead of like a yard of fabric, you need like 15 yards of fabric or whatever, depending on what you're doing. So yeah, it's small puppets definitely.
And can you talk us through some of your favorite puppets that you've built over the years?
There's a lot of puppets. We were actually just talking about the horse I built for Pippi. We did Pippi Longstocking at the Seattle Children's Theater a few years ago. The horse, we decided that we didn't want, there's never been a good horse in costume type thing, you know. The whole show starts out where Pippi walks in carrying a big horse, you know, and sets it down because that's how strong she is. And it's like, there's just never been a good one. There's a Dutch company that did it with two guys with this animatronic head, and it's still, even that one, with all that money and everything, it doesn't look that great. And its back legs are backwards. So we decided...
Kids are screaming, running out of the theater.
Seriously, I know. So we decided we weren't going to do that. We're just going to have the head of the horse be in the house already. That when the show starts, the horse is going to be in the house already. So I was able to put all of that effort just into the head of the horse and make it fully animated, which was really awesome. So it's really a fun horse. It's life-size. It's you know, I mean, all puppets are life-size because they're puppets. But it's you know, it's as big as a horse, and it's, you know, its ears, eyes, mouth, head, everything moved really wonderfully. And so it was a lot of fun to build that puppet. I really love it. And people love it just because it's a horse. It's so much fun. It was great.
How many operators did that one take?
Just one.
Just one?
Took
Wow.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of a horizontal marionette, like a horizontal rod puppet marionette is how it worked. I also made, for the Children's Theater, when we did The Borrowers, there was a giant crow that came on stage. It was about 9 feet tall and about 16 feet long. And it got this actor inside of it who was just great. He just got it. We had originally been thinking, when we were in the early design process, we were talking about having a puppet just sort of come out from the wings, just sort of come out sideways, so you only saw one side of it, and maybe just have a little bit of, maybe the beak move or something like that. And I said to the director, I said, we could do it so it's all the way around. And she's like, really? It's like, yeah. And man, people love that. It's so much fun. It's a great puppet.
Yeah, I saw the video of like sort of the process of it it's on YouTube, and I'll link to it in the show notes because it's really great to see the process of how it came together, and then to see it on the stage, you know, when the guy turns around and this big puppet is right there. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think if you would react like that when you turn around and there's this giant crow right behind you.
Yeah, it got a big audience response every time because, you know, it's walking out from stage and people are like, oh my God, look at that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And when you're making these big puppets like the crow, what kind of things do you have to take into consideration that you don't necessarily for smaller puppets?
Structure. Structure's a big thing. Trying to keep the weight distributed and keep the weight so that you don't end up with unintentional weight distribution. So you don't end up hurting the puppeteer or the puppet, making it so that it can work well, finding materials that are light enough so that you can get the movement you want, but not so heavy that it makes it really hard to move or makes it really clunky looking, whatever. One of the things that's great in that video is that you can see it's a big cage covered in very light fabric. It's actually light enough that the actor can see through most of it on stage lights. So.
And it's like PVC pipe, or is that what the frame is?
It's Delrin, actually.
Oh, Delrin, okay, yeah. It was hard to tell from the video, but it's really amazing, and his movement is really great in it too because it's so light. Yeah,
exactly. He was able to jump, you know. So it was great.
In your opinion, what makes like a really good or engaging puppet?
That's kind of a tough question. When a puppet's full of character, but all right, then what's that? When a puppet is effective in telling its story, and I realize that the story is the puppeteer and the story it's trying to tell, but that it fits the medium fits the message, that a puppet is of the right aesthetic and right scale and everything to work with the story that you're trying to tell. And simple things. For instance, there was I went to a workshop once where these people were talking, and they had hand puppets. And for some reason, they had coated the whole hand puppet's head, and they were very simple hand puppets, but they coated the whole heads in gloss. So the gloss effect just gave the puppets a really weird look and really just sort of got in the way of the storytelling because the puppets were distracting to the message. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's puppets that are full of character, and you know, it doesn't take a lot to have character. You know, just a little fluff of something that moves, or some interesting eyeballs, or eyeballs that really stick out, or something. It can be.
Yeah, I think you can have like it is of course the puppeteer who's also puppeteering it that brings some of the character to it. But there's definitely some puppets where you look at them and you go, that looks like an interesting character. Like even if it's just sitting on a table or sitting on a rack.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think I think a fair amount of that is craftsmanship. I mean, it's like it doesn't require a lot of craftsmanship to make an awesome puppet, but I think that if you have some fine craftsmanship, you can make a great puppet easier.
Well, when did you decide to set up your own studio? Was it that when you quit your job and were working in the garage, or did that come afterwards?
I think it's sort of been a gradual process. I got a gift of some money from my mom one year, back when rents in Seattle were very low. And I was able to rent a space down in Soto. And I thought, I'm just going to see what it's like to have a studio outside of my house. And man, it was great. It was so awesome. It was like a 20 by 20 foot space, which is, just about the size of my house. And so I was able to have like all my sewing tools and all my power tools and everything and all my material storage all in one room. And it was so nice. So I tried that and it was great. And I really tried to, but it was only because I got that gift of money that I was able to do that for that year. And so I kept trying to find other people to partner with me because I wasn't using it full time. This was back before I was building for a lot of people. I built my couple of shows there, but so then I just sort of started doing a little bit here on this table and then a little bit more over here, and then I did all right. Now I got some storage over here, and well, now I need these power tools over here, and pretty soon now I have a studio. So I actually just did a remodel in my house where I moved it. I was a 2-story house, and I moved my master bedroom downstairs, so then now my whole top floor is my studio. So, and that's been great. So it's like, now officially I have a studio. But been a very gradual process.
It is nice to have a studio at home, though. So you can just because I always felt when I had my office, I forgot something at the office. I got to go drive all the way back over to get it. But if it's your studio at home, you can just go, I got to go upstairs.
Exactly.
It's easy, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember, that's how I can fix this thing. So It's like, I'm up there in my robe, and it's like, all right, let me just...
Exactly. I think this goes for a lot of performers and artists. They're often unsure what to charge for their services. Even as puppeteers, somebody asks me, it's like, how much to puppeteer on this thing? And I'm like, I never know what to say because they'll say no. But you don't have to go into specifics. But how do you figure out what to charge a client?
It's a crapshoot every single time.
Yeah.
It's about half and half, I guess. They come to me with a budget. Here's what we want done, and here's what we can afford. Can you do it? And I'll choose to do it or not, depending on a lot of things. Sometimes every now and then somebody comes with an actually pretty decent budget. I'm like, awesome. I can totally do that. But if they don't, then I have to figure out, what are the other things why I want to do this? Am I going to learn something, something that I, have been wanting to do? Do I get to work with a new method? Can I use a new material on this puppet that I've been wanting to do? Is there a new type of puppet that I've, have wanted to experiment with or something that I can possibly do in this thing? So if there's a side benefit that I can get from something somehow that I can learn or some other, material that I can work with, or if it's an organization, if there's some, I've really been wanting to work with those people, so I'm going to try and, it's like, I'll do this for you because I really want to work with you people. I want to work with you for quite some time. It's like, then it's like, we can work with this because, because it's feeding me in some other way than just financially, I mean, it's awesome when it can work out that way, but, it's sometimes you got to just patch it together. I know, it's so hard. And I was going to say, and sometimes there's negotiation involved, too. Sometimes I go, like, hey, this is what I'd like to get for that. And they're like, oh, well, our budget's really this? And I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, let's, how about you kick in some for materials? And then they're like, oh, yeah, usually they can do that. Because it's like, so often that stuff is separate in so many other people's things, that it's like, all right, if you can kick me some for materials, then I think we can do this for this. So.
And have you told clients no, like I'm sorry, I can't. This is not enough. I know it's hard. So I'm wondering have you been able to do that? Be like, this is not going to work for me. I can't do it. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I probably have had to do that. Most of the time I have to say no to clients. It's because it's like, so we're shooting on Friday. Right. It's Tuesday, and it's like, and we'd like 6 puppets for this thing. And their eyes all need to blink, and one of them needs to walk across the stage by itself. And it's like, not so much.
Sure.
I know it sounds absurd, but I actually get requests like that. It's like, just, so those, yes. So on the occasion of those, I don't know that I've had to say no so much for financial reasons. I can usually work something out. I love puppetry. I'll prostitute myself for it, yeah.
Yeah, I know... My friend Russ will often do things where he'll be like, oh, sure, I'll build those puppets, but I get to keep them at the end.
Yeah.
So he'll hang on to them at the end, and that usually, I'll work within your budget, but I get to keep them. So
yeah,
it works sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I have a small amount of storage, so I am fine.
Right.
But yeah.
Here's my crow.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
It's a big giant crow.
Yeah, actually, it's looking for a home. Anyone needs a giant crow.
Do you have builders who come in and help you sometimes, or are you just strictly a one person shop?
One-shop person?
One-shop person.
When I can. I love to hire people. For a number of reasons. Partly, it's just I love to share it. If I did get a good enough bid on what I've got, if they're actually paying me enough, I love to bring people in to help me because I get it done faster. It's always awesome to work with other people. Yeah. Just because. Given something, it's like people are going to look at it different and be like, every single time I work with other people, it's like, oh, or you could do that. It's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? Because, I'm too busy thinking about the whole thing and not about this little thing. It's like, but that's so easy. So, yes, I love working. And they keep me motivated in the studio, too. It's great. Mm-hmm. When I have somebody else come in, it's much easier to not be distracted when, right. Trying to make sure that I have enough work to keep them moving. So, yes, I try and hire people wherever I can. Finding people is difficult. Building is a tough skill. It's an esoteric thing. And, I've had a couple of times where people have approached me and said, oh, my God, you do such cool stuff. I want to come and build with you. It'd be great. And then I'm like, okay, here, help me cut out these 1,500 feathers or,
right.
It's like, sew these 1,400 hands or whatever. It's not that much. But it's like, actually, I just did 60 hands. It's like, here, do these 60 hands. And it's just like, and they're like, oh, wow, this is like work. It's like, yeah.
The glamorous puppet building lifestyle.
See, yeah. Exactly. I know. It's just so it's been hard to, and also I don't have enough work to hire anyone full time. So it's got to be somebody who's got something else going on and just can stop by on occasion. So.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that a lot of puppet builders who are also puppeteers often get to work on the projects that they're building for. Do you find that is the case?
Not so much. Mostly because I build for corporations and theaters and things where they really just want the tool and they've already got everyone to take care of that.
Got it.
I do spend a lot of my time working with actors, coaching actors, how best to use the puppet and watching how they're doing it. Because even when we have early on design process, it's like once we get everything together, sometimes we don't realize that it's like, oh, that's what you meant. You're going to be over there. Well, if it's going to be over there, then why don't we, I could change this handle over here, or why don't we hold it like this, or I could put a rod on this thing or something to help you move it because I thought you were going to be doing this way. So, it's like to work together to make sure that both the actor and the puppet aren't being abused in operating the puppet.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I don't actually get involved a whole lot. No. But I mean, there was one client where they were actually going to bring me in to do that, and the guy was at the last minute. He's like, no, it's like I'll do it. My kid has puppets. Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
I've heard that story several times.
Oh, I bet you have. Yeah.
The advertising exec is like, I can do it. It's no big deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Jack from Jack in the Box. That was the advertising guy.
There you go. Yeah.
Do you think it's important for puppeteers, people who just want to be puppeteers, to have some building experience or at least building knowledge?
I think it's going to greatly, greatly improve your skills. I think if you have a concept about what it takes to build a puppet, about what's involved in putting a puppet together, that it's definitely going to improve your performance. If you have a sense of where it came from and what went into it. It's not critical by any means, but I think it just helps.
Yeah. Well, in addition to building, you do some performing with puppets as well. Do you have a favorite project that you've puppeteered on?
Oh, I would definitely have to say the Cotton Gin. Oh my gosh. Those guys are so amazing. The Cotton Gin is an improv group that Elizabeth Westerman put together through Unexpected Productions. And the premise of it is it's the bar that lets puppets in because puppets, they're troublemakers. And it's just, these people are just, they are just rock star improvisers.
I can't say it.
I can't say it neither. It's the improvers. That's what we're talking about. Them thars that would do it. So they're all from the improv world, and I'm from the puppet world, which is why Elizabeth brought me in to do that. And they're so amazing, and they've been so generous. I mean, improv is something I've always wanted to do because it's like, oh my God, you get up there and play with a bunch of people on stage. How much more fun could that be? But, there's a skill to it. There's a true skill to doing it well and doing it effectively, of which, I basically don't have. But they've been very generous, and we've done 2 seasons there, which is every Friday, Saturday night for 2 months, and we usually do 2 months of rehearsal beforehand. So I get to spend a lot of time doing this, and they're so amazing. It's so awesome. It's so much fun. We just have a great time. We have a lot of people to come back to see it over and over again because you just never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So, and the puppets just add a whole nother dimension to improv. It's really easy to change character without saying, all right, now I'm the guy that was just in here, even though I'm not the guy that, that just said. So
right.
It's like, being able to change with the puppets, it makes it a lot clearer. It's fun. It's fun.
Well, I wanted to touch just briefly, we talked about the library shows before, because I think that a lot of times puppeteers get in this head as like, I want to do TV and movies. That's what I want to do because I'm a puppeteer, and that's where I see puppet thing. But there are these other great venues to do puppetry, and the libraries is actually a really good place to also work on your craft as well.
Absolutely, because boy, kids are the most honest audience. If you're not doing it, they're going to let you know. When you're doing it, they're going to let you know. And so, and it's really awesome. And it's so lovely. People are so appreciative of those shows. They're so much fun. It's like, and I just, when I was doing those, it was so early in my career. I'm sure there were some shows people were just like, oh my God, why am I here? But it's, for the most part, people are really generous. And I have actually thought about getting back into it again, just now that I'm such a much better and more solid performer and builder, that I think it would be spectacular. And you just get to go out and meet all kinds of interesting people.
Yeah. And, well, if a puppeteer is looking to maybe explore that avenue, what advice would you give them about creating a show and bringing a show around to different libraries?
Make it as small as possible.
Right.
Though you don't want it to be too small. They want to, make it so it will fit in your trunk. And the more that you can make it collapse and expand, they really like that.
Yeah.
So you want it to be small because you have to haul it all over the place.
Right.
And you never know. It's like even though ADA is almost everywhere nowadays, there aren't always ramps everywhere. Sometimes you have to haul your stuff upstairs or whatever. So you want it so that you can make it small enough that you can haul it back and forth. But you also want to make it impressive enough that it actually looks like you're doing a show. You don't want to pull one puppet out of a suitcase, because they'll be like, I paid what for that?
Right.
So, I mean, there are people who do that who are absolutely spectacular, but they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know how it is up here, but definitely in Southern California, the money is pretty decent too.
It is. I mean, like I said, I have a friend of mine who he takes insects out and does this sort of it, and he makes his living doing it. Because he goes through a lot of schools. He does a lot of library stuff, but he's been doing it long enough now that they contact him directly for doing their own booking.
Right.
So, yeah.
And do you, when I did I didn't do puppets, but I was doing songs for kids, but I have found that sometimes it's almost entertaining the adults. If you tailor your show to entertain the adult, the kids will be fine because you're goofy enough or the puppets are engaging enough. But you also, if you entertain the adults, then you have a really good show.
Absolutely.
Because the adults are like, hey, we love this.
Right, and that's really good writing. If you can do that, that's excellent.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. You've done a lot of work with marionettes. Did you have, you said you learned it?
From Roger.
From Roger, yeah. And I don't know, for me, marionettes are the most challenging thing. Were you intimidated by them at all before you started?
I wasn't. I mean, they are really challenging, but I think they're so fascinating. I love that you can manipulate the entire puppet from all over. That you can. There's so much more to the puppet that you can show. For instance, marionettes can have arms and hands and legs all at once. And it's like, yes, there are other puppets that can do that, but I can operate the whole thing by myself. Right. So it's great. And especially the animal marionettes, I think it's so fun. I love the way marionettes move. And I know that's one of the things that people often don't like about marionettes is that sometimes they have that unintentional movement of the little swing of the string or whatever, but I find that incredibly charming. I really love it. I think that marionettes, you can be so much more expressive with marionettes than with other puppets, but thus so many strings.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So don't be intimidated. Go for it.
Yeah,
Try it.
do it. Exactly. That's the worst that can happen. You spend hours and hours untangling.
It's not helping.
Yeah, exactly.
Not helping.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Well, I was really amazed today. We're at Felticon here in Seattle, and you did a presentation earlier today about Arduino, which are little computer boards. I'm simplifying it way more than it is. But you have actually started using them in puppetry, and I would love for you to talk about that because I don't think it's an area that is very widely explored.
I know it's something that I think that we can really add a lot of dynamics to puppetry, regardless of what kind of puppetry you do, by using Arduino. Arduino sort of has a little robotics kind of preconceived notion about it, because that's where it started. But there's so much you can add to your puppetry. You can use it for just adding little touches and little things. Maybe it only operates a prop on stage or something, but you can have it move things when you're not touching it, which is really amazing. Or you can have it add extra things. Let's say the head on your puppet's really large. You can have it operate the ears, which would be hard to operate with your fingers because you're already operating the eyes and the mouth or something like that. There are so many things that we can add to it. I built a small piece where there's a bear, a teddy bear type character sitting on stage, and this crow comes along and it finds it sitting on the side of the street kind of a thing. And so the bear and the crow interact with the bear has got Hall sensors in it, which are triggered by magnets, and the crow has got a magnet in its beak. Now, doing a marionette for that was not very brilliant. I should have done a hand puppet, but because I like marionettes, and apparently I like to torture myself. But, so the crow is just pestering the bear. And when the crow, there's 4 or 5 different sensors on 2 different places in the arms and legs, depending on what it does, which makes the bear look like it's trying to shoo the crow off or kick him away or just stare at him or whatever. And it's fun because you can't tell what's making the bear operate. So I can basically operate 2 puppets on stage with only just me, 2 fully separate characters doing things with just one person doing it. So I can tell so much more of a story that way, and that's all Arduino. The bear is completely programmed with Arduino. And it's so fun. There's a whole other thing. I can operate 2 puppets.
Yeah. Is this your high-tech background coming into your puppetry art?
Apparently it is, because there is, having some experience with programming definitely helps with this.
Yeah.
It's like I said in my workshop today, there's a ton of tutorials out there, and there's a whole bunch of things that are already done. Pretty much anything that you can think to do with Arduino has already been done. Somebody's already written the code for it. You just go out there and find it and tweak it or whatever. But having some knowledge of coding and electronics really helps. It'll make your frustration level less.
Right. Yeah, but you can, somebody could learn it, though. It's not like even if they have no tech background, it's...
Absolutely. Especially nowadays, there are so many kits out there. It's becoming a relatively common thing in schools now. And so there are so many kits out there where you can buy a kit that comes with a pre-programmed, like a thing that you would already try to make, a predefined little critter or something like that. And so that's a great way to start doing that. And somebody was telling me earlier today, too, that there is apparently there's a birdbrain.com out there in conjunction with Carnegie Mellon that has taken that programming interface and made it much more visual so that you don't even have to do, you don't have to do the darn code. You don't have to figure out where those stupid curly braces go. So.
Yeah. Well, and I always say that if you're really stuck, there's always a 12-year-old in Alabama who's uploaded a YouTube video that shows you how to do it.
Absolutely.
Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do this. How does he know this? He's a genius.
12.
Well, you are the master puppet artisan for the Seattle Children's Theater. How did you get involved with them?
That was through Douglas Bosch. He was, who I had mentioned earlier how I met, and he was working there. He's the one who developed the puppetry program there, and he was able to make them realize that puppetry is its own distinct program, its own distinct set of skills, and that it requires its own separate area, or, department basically in there, which was groundbreaking. As a matter of fact, as far as I know, it's still groundbreaking. As far as I know, it is the only theater, the only Lort theater in the country that has an explicit puppetry department.
Yeah.
And it's just, which is sad. It's like, come on out, you college kids, get out there. It's like, make puppetry departments in other theaters. Tell people most theaters either have their prop people do the puppets because the skills are very similar. Or they, if they know enough to do it, they will find some other puppetry person in the community or in the country. I actually work all over the country. It's a lot of what I do. And to build puppets for them. And help with some of the coaching and stuff. The coaching's a big deal because often with Lord theaters, it's like most of them are union, so they're equity actors that are doing these things, and a lot of them, it's like actors don't have puppetry training. That should happen too. They should all have one semester of puppetry training.
No,
they never use
they'll
it again.
take jobs away from us. No, don't. What are you doing?
Exactly that.
No,
because they won't do it well. Exactly.
How many projects do you do like a year for them? Like how many productions have puppets involved?
It totally varies. There was one year when I think I did 4, and like the last couple of years I've done, which was a lot. And this last couple of years I've just done 1 for them. So and the puppet projects, sometimes they're huge and sometimes they're not so big either. So
do you think a lot of the directors will look for places to put puppets in, knowing that they have you as a resource?
I think so. I think they try and have at least one a year. I've been working there long enough that I'm so incredibly lucky that they like what I do, and they do try and find a project for me every year, which is great.
Well, in the intro I did for you, we talked about the O'Neill Puppetry Conference, which I've been to. And you just recently went and got to work with Ronnie Burkett. Could you tell us about that experience?
That was so phenomenal. I got to be in the right place at the right time. So amazing. So Ronnie Burkett is a puppeteer out of Canada who's one of those who has done it all his life. It's the only thing he's ever done since he ever discovered puppetry. So that's amazing. That's really great. But he normally does these one-man shows with marionettes that are very text-heavy, very verbal, and it's very spectacular. And so this particular piece that he did had no words in it, so that was groundbreaking right there. The marionettes that we operated were not strung with controls. There was 5 of us operating each marionette. So, and there was 2 of these marionettes in the show. The show was called Crave, which was Cradle to Grave. And so it starts out with these 2 marionettes on each end. One is basically buried and just it's going to work its way back, and one is just about to be born. And they work their way back in time till they're the same age. They meet, fall in love, and then carry on with their lives. And it's in a totally wordless fashion. And it was so amazing. It was so beautiful. It was so moving. It was so spectacular to be in an ensemble like that. There were times when it was very challenging, but it was such an amazing ensemble. It was, Ronnie handpicked these people who were everyone was able to put their egos aside and just concentrate on the work. And so we were able to produce something. I mean, we had basically 3.5 days to produce this 18-minute piece that made even the people who've seen everything go, oh my gosh, I've now seen everything. I mean, it was a piece unlike any of us have ever been involved in, and it's incredibly moving. And it was just the whole process. He really built us as a group, as a team. We were really just, we were very, very close by the time that we were done with it. It was an experience unlike any other. Yeah.
Was that your first time at the O'Neill, or had you been before?
No, it was not my first time. I've actually my 5th year going there. Okay. Yeah.
And I've only been once, and but just talking to other people who've been to the O'Neill, it really is like a life-changing experience. Like it's
so trite, but it's so true.
This week in Connecticut that is just 24 hours a day, literally 24 hours a day puppetry. And would you recommend puppeteers and builders go check this out?
I think if you want to have any kind of a serious career in it, you should really, yes. It's so amazing. It's unlike anything else. It's like puppetry grad school. It's just, You get to work with the best in the biz. That's one of the things about our profession is that we're small enough nationwide that we get to work with the best in the biz. It's like you name it, and it's like they were, and that's unparalleled. I mean, imagine you went to a writer conference and you could just go down and sit down and have lunch with Stephen King or whoever. You know, it's like that. You know, it's like you can. It's so amazing to have access to that. Also, while you're there, every other care is taken care of. You know, it's like you don't have to worry about food, you don't have to worry about transportation, you don't have to worry about anything. It's like you get to spend 100% of your energy, mental, physical, emotional, and there's a lot of that, involved in puppetry, which is just to be able to just put everything aside and concentrate on that. I mean, think what you could do if you had an entire week where all you did was just puppetry.
Yeah.
Well, it's so awesome. And then you're with these other people who have got these incredibly amazing ideas. You know, and I'm so inspired every time I come back from there. I have 100 ideas. I'm just like so ready to go. It's like I'm always glad when I come back from the O'Neill and I have projects in my studio because I'm like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. It's I highly recommend it for anybody who is not gone. Or even if you have gone, go back.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Exactly. That's another thing, too. I've done a variety of different positions in there where I've been a participant. I've been the resident company, which is where you help emerging artists. That's where somebody comes with their piece. They have a finished thing that they want, or not a finished thing. They have a thing that they want to develop there. And you get, like I said, the best in the biz who are helping you doing dramaturgy and staging and technical issues. And you know, and you have people. You get to have people in your thing. You know, you don't have. You can cast it right from there and just spend time working with it. And then you perform at the end of the week. You perform for a live East Coast audience. Yeah,
several shows, right? It's like 3 or 4 performances.
Well,
right?
There's a Friday and Saturday night.
Right.
It seems like several because there's tech and then there's the
right.
Friday Saturday afternoon thing. It's like, yes, it seems like it goes on and on.
Yeah. It's like a year in a week.
It
really is.
Yes.
If you've been there, you know.
That's what you're saying. It's like last week, yesterday.
Yeah. Well, what are some of your other upcoming projects that you're excited about? That you can talk about, because I know that there's some that you cannot talk about.
Exactly, I know. Yes, I have a bunch of stuff that's really exciting. I'm working with a lovely little theater called Dare to Dream Theater out of Wisconsin. They're doing Mr. Pout-Pout, which is a children's book. They're making a stage production out of it, using Mr. Pout-Pout is a fish, and so it's in all underwater critters, and they're making a stage production out of that. And it's kind of fun because I've been doing this long enough where I often make the same puppet over and over again. Like, I've lost track of how many cats I've made. I mean, they call me the crazy cat lady at the theater because I'm so crazy I have to make my own cats. But I mean, really, there's cats everywhere. But as one of these things, there's a squid puppet. And it's like, I've never made a squid before. There needs to be more squid puppets. It's actually kind of fun. Yeah. So.
But you're also building some puppets for a unique version of Little Shop of Horrors as
right.
well.
Shoreline Community College is doing Little Shop of Horrors Avenue Q style, which is fun. Yeah. I think that's going to be great. One of the challenges that I came up with is, that we're using, for Audrey and Seymour, we're making them live hands puppets. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that occurred to me is, like, you've never seen a female live hands puppets. So somehow I need to make those puppets, those hands, be somewhat delicate and still useful. Yeah. So, that's going to be interesting.
It's interesting. Yeah, that is an interesting challenge.
So we'll see how that works. But I love the fact that she's going to do that. And it's like, I can't wait to see how it all works out. Yeah, I'm excited about those puppets. It's going to be great.
Well, and I know the obvious answer to this, but I wanted to put it on the podcast. Do you need to be in New York or Los Angeles to get work as a puppet builder or puppeteer?
It certainly would help.
That's not the answer I was looking for.
Oh, right.
I thought you were going to say.
Exactly. No, actually, I have been extremely fortunate in what I do, and I have just been very. I think part of the thing is I've been doing this so long that I sort of people have. I have a web presence, and they're out. People connect and talk about it. Sometimes, honestly, I'm not sure where my work comes from, but I'm a big fish in a small pond when it comes right down to it. So I think that really helps. I don't think I'd be anywhere near as successful as I am if I did live in New York or LA. On the other hand, I wouldn't be working alone all the time. I'd be working, with a team of other people doing building. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of 6 of one, half of the other. But yeah, I think if you're passionate about anything, you're going to make it work. Yeah. And it's like, to me, it's like, I love building puppets.
Yeah.
So
and I think it's like, exploring those other options like libraries. Like, you wouldn't necessarily think, maybe you would think that you do puppet shows in a library, but, You know, if you have that mindset of like, no, just TV and film, it's like, no, there's other things you can do. There's other places you can perform.
And one of the things that's been really exciting for me is that I've been starting to build for some of the other theaters around here. And, you know, the other theaters that are not children's theaters. You know, some other,
Right.
you know, regular theaters? So that's been very exciting to be able to be doing so. That I'm building a puppet for I always forget it. It's the Noteworthy Life of Howard Barnes that the Village Theater is doing. It's this fellow who wakes up in a musical, you know, so needless to say, his life is hell. And so he has to go through this trial to try and, you know, to get, you know, win the girl and, you know, get out of save his life, you know,
Yeah.
and get out of the thing. And so there's a puppet, you know, so what it does, it's if you're into theater at all, go see the show because it is hilarious. I'm so excited. I worked with them on the workshop a few years ago, and so I'm really excited to see the show be on the boards. But they do a lot of spoofs of all the popular things. It's like that's part of his trials, is he has to sort of go through all these musicals. So needless to say, Avenue Q is one of the ones that's in there. Exactly. And so yes, I'm building a special puppet for that. And that's really great. You know, here I'm building a puppet for a regular show. I love that.
Right. What is the best piece of puppetry advice you ever received that you still use today?
Just do it. I mean, I know that's just like cliched, but it's just do it. Just go to the studio and make stuff. You know, it's like just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. You know, it's a hands-on art, and it's a lifelong to master it. It's lifelong to master it. I mean, that's one of the things. So Ronnie has been doing this all his life. He's never called himself an artist, you know, because he knows how much there is to learn from this, you know, how much there's just always is. And it's just, so it's like, and that's one of the things that keeps me involved. One of the reasons that I find it so fascinating. It's like, even if I made the same puppet the second time or whatever, however many times, it's like I'm always learning something off of it. You know, every single puppet is different. And so it's just, there's always so much to learn, whether you're learning about the performance stuff or you're learning about, you know, the technical stuff or anything. It's, just keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Ronnie Burgett, and I hope people will look him up because he's amazing. But I would also love to know who are some other puppeteers that you think people should look up and check out?
Oh, that's a good question. I was supposed to be prepared for that one. There's so many spectacular people out there. Philip Huber is another one, because I'm kind of for the marionette thing, so I kind of like that. He's a little easier to find, having done a little bit more stuff in the movies.
And he's been on the podcast. You can listen to
an
older episode.
Right.
And hear him. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know. Most of the people I know are the behind-the-scenes type people, you know? Like Christine Papalexis has already been on there, so I think she's amazing. She's made a movie. It's really fun. You know, Greg Valora, he does some amazing building stuff. Kevin Frisch, he runs his own marionette company, another marionette guy, sorry. But he's really amazing. He's out of Ohio, and he's done a lot to further puppetry education, which is really great.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we'd like to open up for questions now. If somebody has any, if anybody has a question, and they'd like to come up. Oh,
I can't believe there's the mic on the stand thing. This is like, wow.
Yeah, it's like Comic-Con.
Oh my God.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, for the libraries, where do you go to find out the information on what programs that they're looking for, that they're bidding on?
I contacted the librarian directly. There is the Seattle library system, there's the King County library system, and then there's a Snow Isle library system, and there's one in the south too for the Pierce and all of those. So if you can go online and look contact those people directly, like info@seattlelibrary.com or whatever, and say, hey, I'd like to find out some information about that. They used to anyway, put out the bids in like the end of the year, usually around November, December or so, and start the bidding process in about January.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. Thank you.
I think you could also, if you know a library performer, you could also talk to them as well. I do know that my one thing about library shows is if you commit to a date, you kind of have to commit to it, because I booked some summer dates, and there was this one date I couldn't do because I got I got a performance job, and I was like, well, I got to do that. And I told the librarian, I'd apologized. I was like, I'm so sorry I can't make it. I apologize. I will come back. I'll do a show for half price. She was like, no, thank you. That's it. And it's like, okay, so it's like, don't cross librarians.
Yeah.
Just don't. If you make a promise, keep it.
Exactly.
All right.
The puppets you've talked about have all been like people and animals. Do you have any experience building puppets for things that are usually inanimate? And like, what are some things you have to think about for that?
So what do you mean by inanimate? What,
Like a talking sandwich?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Oh, well, then they become puppets, and then that makes them animate. So yeah, I have built some things like that, and sometimes, one of the things I do too, often I build puppets that don't have a particular, like, you don't stick your hand in them, or they don't have a little trigger or whatever. You just sort of put your hands on them and operate them. So I do that a lot, and it's just, making sure that there's, easy places to grab your hands, and that, again, that it's telling the story that you hope it wants to tell. So, yeah.
So, being a big fish in a small pond, as you said, do you get a lot of unsolicited requests for building advice from other puppeteers? And if so, does that annoy you?
Actually, no, I would say I don't get enough questions, enough unsolicited questions. Don't reinvent the wheel. Yes, ask me. I will tell you. It is not, by all means. I will share anything that I can with you about how to build stuff, because I want you to put your effort into making the character of the puppet, or making it work as well as you can. And it's like, don't worry about how to make an eye blink, or what other futzy little thing, or what fabric you should use, or whatever. It's like, if you got a question, by all means ask. Yes, my contact info will be on the bottom of this thing.
Yeah, that question is coming up. Well, let me ask you this: what has been the highlight of your puppetry career so far?
I have to say, I got the great good fortune of working for a big, huge corporation that had a lot of money and a brilliant insight. It was Valve Corporation. They do Dota. This is so super geeky. This is computer gaming stuff. But Dota is, there's a huge festival. They have this huge gaming conference that happens in Seattle every year. Actually, it's not happening this year because the arena that they're putting it in is going to be torn down. Actually, it's not going to be happening in Seattle for a while. It's up in Vancouver this year. But so it's ostensibly the largest sporting event in the world, because that is because of the prize package, which was the year that I did it, which was 2016, was $21 million was the prize package. It's like, you can play computer games and win. Well, the people who won $10 million. And then or maybe it was 12 or something like that. And then they do it Final Four elimination style. So the other ones got pieces of that. But it's just like, it's insane. It's like, oh my gosh, so much money.
Yeah, I got to get out of puppetry, get into video games.
Seriously. It's like, you play video games and you win millions of dollars and you're set.
Yeah.
You play one game, you win, you're done. So it's not quite like that. These kids
Solitaire on the computer.
see, that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, they decided, so it's done, traditional sports style type thing, where there's sportscasters that talk about, Road to Dota, and they have the little, things of interviews with the individuals and things like that, and talking about strategies and who's, all this sort of thing. They have sportscasters too. I mean, they got this fancy desk, and they got all these sports. So somebody at Valve, some brilliant person at Valve decided, let's, in the middle of the commentary, switch out the sportscasters for puppet sportscasters. How fun is that? So I know, so it's super secret. Even the sportscasters didn't know about it until the day before. Just when we were doing tech, it's just the day before. He calls them aside. So we're going to do this thing. And fortunately, they're all like, "What? That's awesome. Do we get to keep our puppets?" It's like, no. So it was so cool. I got to build all these puppets that looked like these sportscasters. That was fun right there. And it was a short. There was a pretty short turnaround in there. So, but these, it was awesome. So that was one time when I hired some folks to do it. It was really great. Got to build all these little headsets. It was fun. So we did this, and then I got to hire a bunch of puppeteers to actually do this stuff too. So it's like I got to hire people to build with me. I got to hire puppeteers to actually do it, and which was really fun. Mm-hmm. So when the puppeteers, when they switched out like this, the puppeteers were sitting behind the booths where the sportscasters had been, and the sportscasters were sitting on the floor behind them, and the puppeteers had to do live lip syncing to this. As these guys, I know exactly. Yeah, that's how rock star all these puppeteers were. Some of whom are in this very room. And and it was just great as they were bantering back and forth. Everyone had such a good time with it. Val was spectacular to work with. Karen Prell was one of the ones who, she just totally greased the slids for that. I mean, made the whole thing happen, made sure that we were taken care of really well. She knew exactly, obviously, how to deal, make sure the puppeteers had everything they needed to have. She was amazing. It was really spectacular. It was so great. I loved working with them. I loved being able to bring so many people in to work with this thing. It's like, as a builder, I mostly work alone. So whenever I can do something like that, whenever I can bring people in, it's so much fun. So yeah.
Well, if people want to connect with you online and check out your work, where can they go?
Puppetlandia.com is my website. I am Annett Mateo or Puppetlandia on Facebook. I'm Puppetlandia on Instagram, etc.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, how about a big round of applause for Annett Mateo, our guest today on Under the Puppet. Annett, thank you so much.
Thank you. What an honor. Thank you.
My thanks to Annett Mateo for being on the show. You can visit her online at puppetlandia.com. I'll have a link to that, as well as a few other things, in the show notes for this episode number 20, over at underthepuppet.com. I'd also like to thank Rachel Jackson of Vox Fabuli Puppets for hosting us at Felticon, the Felticon attendees, and Keith Tavares and Cassie Bray from the Theater Off Jackson. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Under the Puppet. I welcome your feedback via email at hello@SaturdayMorningMedia.com or via Twitter, where the show is at username Under the Puppet. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for Under the Puppet. I want to hear your suggestions for questions I should be asking and for future guests. Also, the goal of this show is to talk to puppeteers making it happen in all sorts of styles of puppetry. So if you know an amazing bunraku or shadow puppet artist, please reach out. Let me know who I should be talking to. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you next time right here on Under the Puppet. Music for this episode by Dan Ring, and this episode was edited by Steven Staver. This show is a production of Saturday Morning Media and made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly pledge for as little as $1 a month. Huge thanks to Shay Stewart, Myrn Lafferty, Jeff Peterson, Dale Gadania, Steven Staver, Jackie Klimo, Melissa Crawford, Dave Slusher of the Evil Genius Chronicles, Mike Coughlin, Dorothy Pachoco, John D., Kathy Crawford, Brian Greer, Carrie Whitney, Chuck Tomasi from the Technorama podcast, Chris Foster, Stephen Ing, Clinton of ComedyForecast.com, Vicky DeVries, Mike Wabshall, Twitter user Butts and Gear, a.k.a. Wildcat, Eve Cunning, Mike Hamilton, Gaston Moreno, Reed Loveland, Ivan Asquith, Vanessa Whitney, Peggy Etra, Kristen Hogan of Squid Friends, David Akers, Zoe Palladino, Ellen Multari, Christopher Harris, Rachel Jackson of Vox Fabuli Puppets, Carolyn Weisner, John Petty, Rachel Hansen, Darcy Prevost, Fernando Torres, Perlicue Magic, Ron McAdams, Jason Domer, Lee Barrett, Casino Skunk, The Misty Minute, Peter Capesser, Night Gig Studios, Joelle Rechtfertig, Adrian Rose Leonard, Earth to John Francis, RJ, Ginger J. Fitz, Megapodtastic, Paul Brunel, Jamie Hitchcock, Catherine Hannaford, Alan Gratz, Rachel Gibbous, John R. Donald, Jude Major, Miss Maudie and her buddies, Molly Smith, Phil Goodman, Emma Buntrock Muller, Jennifer Ballier, Nate Beagle, David Packman, and the Trivia Puppet Company. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly pledge today. You can also tell a friend about the show or leave the show a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. This show is copyright 2018 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Bachogo, executive producer. All rights reserved. www.SaturdayMorningMedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.